art friends, today we are working on our Mermaid Tail paint kit that you picked up from Curio. We have a lot of different colors we're using today to make this really sweet mermaid tail. Make sure you have a paper towel and a cup of water so that we can get started. You have a lot of colors you're using. You can feel free to use them all like I am, or you can use some of them. So whenever we're doing our project today, feel free to take your own ideas and add them to the project. I'm just guiding you through something that I would do, but obviously we're not the same person. So you can choose the different things that you like and the different things that I'm doing and kind of create your own piece. So for the background, we're gonna use some of these different colors to make a really cool kind of diagonal, kind of rainbow look to it a little bit. So I'm gonna give myself just a few guiding lines to help to see where I'm going to be done with some of my colors. So I'm going to make a little bit of a diagonal so that I can kind of see where I want to stop one color and start another one. So I'm going to do a little bit of green, blending into some blue, maybe blending into some purple, and then kind of heading into some lighter pink at the end. And I know I'm drawing so light you might actually not even be able to see it, and that's okay. They're just more lines for me to kind of be helped out a little bit. But that's already your first choice. I'm going in a diagonal. If you want to go straight across, you're more than welcome to. So I'm going to begin today by using a little bit of a larger brush, and I'm going to start down towards the bottom this way with green. You're using a canvas. I like to paint on paper so that I don't use up the extra canvases so that they can be shipped and picked up by you. But when you are painting, make sure you paint the sides and the top of your canvas as you're working so that it's ready to hang up whenever you're done. I'm going to leave a little bit of space at the edge, but make sure that you're wrapping your painting all the way down to the sides. So I'm actually going to do my background first, meaning that this mermaid tail is going to be second. So I'm going to be doing the background. I'm going to start with some of my green, and I'm just going to do an area where I kind of drew my line here. So I'm going to do this kind of background where I'm adding some green in just to make it some really fun rainbow colors. I always think of mermaids as these really cool, kind of majestical, magical, ocean living creatures. So there's kind of a sense of being whimsical today. It's okay if it's not perfect. Like, oh, I thought she's swimming in water, so why would there be green? It's okay, we're just doing this kind of fun background to it, so that's all right. So your first choice could be that you could totally wash your brush and start your next color. I'm not going to do that. I want to make these look like they're blended together a little bit. So while my green is still wet, close to the top up here, I am not going to wash my brush out, and I'm going to switch over into this lighter blue. And I'm actually going to put my lighter blue right against my green color. And because my green is still wet, it's gonna pick up some of it into my blue. So now it's kind of become this kind of bluishy green color. And what I'm gonna do next is I am gonna wash my brush because I'm gonna get some of that green color now out of my brush. I'm gonna dry it so that I don't have like crazy oozing watery paint everywhere. And I'm gonna go back in with my blue again. So now that I have more blue on my brush, I'm gonna kind of push it again back down into the green so that it can pick up a little bit of the green again, but not quite as much green as before because I washed my brush out a little bit. So that kind of helps it to fade from green into a little bit more of the blue color here. And blue is my favorite color, so there's no way I was gonna be able to do this project today without blue. Now that I have more of like my regular blue, I'm going to paint that in. It's okay if you accidentally go into your mermaid a little bit because we're going to be painting back over top of her as we get a little bit closer to the end. And you can tell as I'm working, I constantly turn my canvas or paper or drawing, whatever I'm working on, because I like to always be close to where I'm painting. I don't want to be really far away and reaching over wet paint. I want to have it really close to me so I have more control. So I'm holding my paintbrush up close to the bristles so I have more control. I like to outline first, so I'm going to kind of go against the mermaid. I'm going to go against the line that I drew for myself that shows me where to stop. And then I can paint the rest of it in. Filling in that empty space. And I'm always trying to make sure that I'm kind of smoothing out any big thick blobs that might be starting to show. That makes my painting dry nicer. It makes sure that my paint doesn't like chip off of my canvas because it's too thick, and it just overall looks really nice. Now I'm gonna do something very similar to what I did for the green. I'm gonna add a little bit more blue up here to the top because I'm going to take my blue and I'm going to blend it into my purple next. And this is not how you have to paint this. If you want to do green, blue, and do a pattern, if you want to do like purple, blue, you can. These colors are here for you to be able to use in the best way you see fit. So just like I did before, instead of washing out my brush, I'm going to keep the blue in there and I'm going to dip right into my purple. I'm going to go right next to my blue with my purple. And then I'm even gonna take my purple and go a little bit down into my blue and kind of keep swiping that back and forth. So it looks like my blue and my purple are starting to blend just a little bit. And I'll continue that down this side too. It's very hard to blend colors if your colors are dry. So that's why before I added the purple right next to the blue, you saw that I added a little bit more blue so that it would be kind of wet and I could make those colors mix together a little bit. I am gonna wash my brush off because I have a lot of blue still in it, and now I wanna shift over to just mainly more purple. And like I said, we're holding that paintbrush up close to the bristles. I'm going to outline kind of where I want my purple to end. It doesn't have to be perfect. And if you are a younger artist, someone in your family could always do this part for you, somebody that's a little bit older of a grown-up, so that you know exactly where to start and stop while you're working on your painting, because sometimes it can be hard to see where your stopping points are. And if at any point I'm going too fast for you, you can absolutely pause the video until you're ready to continue on. So don't at all feel rushed. It is okay. This purple color, awesome. I don't normally use purple a lot. I should use it more often. Blue's my favorite, so when I have to choose colors, I always normally head over to my blue. Okay, what I'm gonna do next is I'm actually going to do a lighter version of my purple. So what I'm gonna do on my palette, I'm gonna take some purple and I'm going to take some white, straight white. You also have a glitter color, and we're gonna save that for the end. But I'm gonna take some of my white and I'm going to make this purple just a little bit lighter. And the more white you add, the lighter your purple will get. So if you want a very, very pastel, super light purple, then that's what you would add, is lots and lots and lots of white. And you can kind of blend those together just like we have been, so that it looks like it's going from a little bit of a darker to lighter purple. Make sure you mix quite a bit of your new color, because it's always hard to mix and find the exact same color again. And make sure that you're outlining so that you know when to stop. And I'm gonna go, this is a little tricky, it's going around my mermaid tail this time. But again, these are all different colors that you can choose to do. you could actually mix together your purple and your blue, and you could make it a darker purpley blue if you want to, more of an indigo, which would be a great color choice also. This is just what I'm choosing to do, but of course you don't have to. I think I've said quite a few times now that it's your picture, so you're able to choose the colors that you want to do for your background and the colors that you want to do for your mermaid tail. I'm just guiding you in the way that I would go about it. And these are the colors you got in your kit. If you happen to have extra colors at home, because you do a lot of artwork at home too, you're more than welcome to bring those in. I'm going to take my paintbrush and wash it off and dry it. And I'm actually going to take my brush, I'm going to go right back in between these two purples again, because I feel like they kind of just ended. And I'm going to blend those together just a little bit more so it's a little softer in between. And the next thing I'm going to do is finish my background with some pink next. So I'm actually going to take my pink and I'm going to do something different. I'm going to go back to the very edge here, and I'm going to put my darker pink back here at the last spot. And then I'm going to add a little bit of white to my pink, and I'm going to finish this last part as a lighter pink. So I'm going to add some white into here and mix those together, make it a little lighter. I'm going to gather a little bit of that purple that was just in my white too. So it's kind of a whitish-y, pinkishy, purpley. And that's going to be my last color. Just to make it a little bit more interesting. That's the really cool thing with mixing colors. You can mix colors until you can't even count anymore. Colors can always, always, always be mixed and changed and made lighter or darker or more purple or more pink. So it's pretty cool. You can always, always be mixing and making and changing colors. Color mixing is a really cool process. Think about if you've ever been to like Lowe's or Home Depot or any kind of like store that mixes paint. You look at all those different colors. It's amazing to think that all of those are made just by mixing some different colors together. I'm just going to add a tiny bit more of this darker pink right here because I feel like it needs it. And like I said, at any point if you need to pause the video, you can, or at any point that you want to, fast forward, maybe you did this differently than me and you didn't add any shading, so you're ready to go, then you can always fast forward it to the part that you're ready for also. Great, so now that we're done with our background, we're gonna go and we're gonna do our tail. And again, you could do it many different ways that you want to. I'm gonna stick with a little bit more blues and greens because I said that blue is my favorite color already, so that's something I'm gonna stick with a little bit more. So I'm actually going to paint with my blue, and I'm going to make this a little bit kind of choppy as I'm working on it. So what I wanna do is I wanna try my best to keep my paint going in the same direction as the mermaid's tail. So what I don't wanna do is I don't wanna paint it just very flat and straight across. So what I'm gonna be doing is I'm going to try to use my paintbrush, and the way that this line is kind of coming down and swooping, I'm going to try to mimic that or copy it. So I'm gonna take my paint and I'm going to try to make sure that when I'm putting my paint on, I'm trying to recreate this pencil line, and it's going to help make my mermaid look a little bit more realistic. And I'm going to do that until I get to about the middle, and then it's kind of getting a little bit more flat. So then I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. I'm gonna do this arch going this way, and I'm going to try to follow this line so that my swooping line kind of comes over this direction. And by doing this, even with marker when you're coloring something, it can help make your project look a little bit more realistic, which is pretty cool. And one thing I'm gonna do is work a little bit more quickly, and I don't say that to like scare you and make you nervous or hurry you along at all. That's not my intention for that. But I'm going to kind of stop my tail right when it gets to these 3 lines that are drawn in for the fin. And what I'm going to do is, the reason why I said I'm gonna do this a little bit more quickly is because while this blue is still wet, I am not going to wash my brush, and I'm going to add in some of this green, and I'm going to do the same kind of lines that we did whenever we were trying to show how you paint to make it look more realistic. So I'm gonna do just a few of these. I'm not gonna paint the whole thing in green. I'm gonna do just a few lines to add some depth to it, to make it look like her tail's kind of this nice mix between blue and green. You don't have to do that. It's just an option for you if you want to. And I'm gonna leave that just like it is. If something happens and you feel like you did something you didn't like, or maybe I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh man, I added too much green, I don't like that, then you can let it dry, or you could use a hairbrush, not a hairbrush, you could use a hair dryer to speed up the process. And you could always add your color back in. I could always add blue back into here if I wanted to after it dried, to make it look a little bit different, to make it look a little bit brighter. Or I could add, I think I'm gonna do this, I could add a little bit of my white into my blue. I already love blue, let alone any even kind of lighter blue. It's just amazing. So I could also, if I feel like this looks a little flat, like it looks a little dark, I could make a little bit of a lighter blue, and I could come in and I could add some lighter blue into some areas. And this would just kind of create something called a highlight. It would create an idea that there's some lights and some darks to where the sun is kind of hitting her through the water. So that's an idea that you can do too, if you want to. But again, this picture is very freeing to what kind of things you like. There's a lot of colors to choose from, and you might choose to do them really differently. You might even choose to watch the whole video and see how I do it and then decide what you want to do for your own. I am going to turn this so that I can have the fin close by to me. I'm still going to continue using my blue for the fin because, like I said, I want to have a blue mermaid tail because that's my favorite color. And I'm going to start by kind of outlining this first. And just like I did the main body, I'm going to end up doing the fin in a very similar way, with making sure that when I'm painting, I am trying to do the same kind of shape. So I'm doing something kind of like this, where those same lines are being copied to make it look like it has a certain shape to it. So that my paintbrush gives these paint strokes that help to make it look like it's a little bit more of a rounded shape, or a little bit more of a realistic shape of a mermaid tail. So I'm kind of making that arch over and over again until I get to like the middle. And then I'm gonna start to go on this side and recreate this line until we meet. So it's much more realistic looking than if I would have just painted it like this, up and down. And I could choose to do my green again if I wanted to add some green in. This time I think I'm gonna use some of the pink and add some pink in just a little bit. I think that might look a little bit more interesting, just so that it looks kind of fun. I'm just gonna add a few of these lines in that kind of is the same line that my pencil line looked like it was drawn in, to kind of add that idea of helping the person looking at it see the direction that the fins are going in. So that's what I'm doing for my mermaid tail. We have a couple more steps to do just to help your mermaid tail really stand out and look amazing. So one thing I would suggest is making sure that this is nice and dry. So whether you want to use a hair dryer, whether you want to wait and come back to this at another point in time, you can, but it's always easier to do the next part, which is outlining, whenever everything's dry, because then you can rest your hand on your picture and you don't have to worry about smearing anything. So what we're gonna do next is we're gonna use our black to add a little bit more definition to your lines. So I'm going to start kind of on the pencil line. So right beside where my fin ends and the background begins, I'm going to use my black to help put back in the pencil line that showed my tail. I'm gonna hold my paintbrush really close to the top. I'm gonna go really slow because I have more control if I go slow. And I am kind of turning my paper so I'm staying really close to my pencil line. And this just really helps for your mermaid tail to pop from the background and really be able to be seen. I love to outline things because I think it helps to make it be able to be seen from far away. Because remember, this will probably be hanging somewhere in your house, so when someone comes in to look at it, they can see it right away, which is great. Now I'm gonna start to do the inside. So I'm gonna follow these three little kind of rainbow shapes, and what these are is these are the scales for your mermaid tail. You could do something like this with a fish, with a dragon. This scale helps to make it look like it has a texture. Texture is the way that it would feel. So it's a really important thing to be able to have for our project. So I'm actually gonna start kind of where my tail is widest. And if you want to, you could wait until this is dry. You could use a Sharpie. You could have a family member help you and draw this in pencil first, so you're able to trace it. I'm just gonna go for it because I've done scales many times. So I'm going to just go ahead and paint it in. But what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna make rainbow shapes, or if it's easier for you to make a U shape, you could turn your picture over so that you're matching these U's. So I'm gonna start where my mermaid tail kind of body is widest. And I'm going to make these really large U's. And the reason why we're making them big is because then you don't have to do as many. So the bigger you can paint these, the easier it'll be for you to kind of finish them. Because if you draw them super, super teeny tiny, it is going to take you forever. So after you draw those, you're going to go in between. It's almost like this is a really big gap and you need a bridge over it. So you're going to take that in between and you're gonna build a nice big bridge over top. And you're going to continue your nice big scales until you kind of hit the edge. And you're going to continue that all the way down your mermaid. And like I said, this is something you could absolutely do with a Sharpie after it dries, if that makes you feel more at ease about doing it. You could do this with a smaller brush that you might have at home. You could do it in pencil first and then have the black paint over it to trace when you're done. You could also ask a family member to do it for you if you needed that to happen. That's fine. So whatever's easiest for you. And I'm gonna do 2 more here to kind of round out the end. And this is a little tricky up top. You're just gonna kind of do it in reverse. So I'm gonna make my rainbow shape kind of hit that line. And I'm just gonna do it until it goes off the edge of my paper or canvas. So you're kind of thinking backwards, which can be a little tricky too. So it's okay if you need help for that part. Oh my gosh, the scales really help to make sure that it's definitely a mermaid tail and helps to set it apart a little bit. If you want to, you could also put some lines back in your fin to kind of help the person looking at it see the direction that the fin is going in, if you want. And that would be kind of how you use the black to help make your project look a little bit more crisp and stand out a little bit more. And now we're getting to the point where we get to add some really sweet bubbles to our project. And I have a really cool trick that I like to use for bubbles. Some of you might have markers that look like this at home. And you don't have to do this. You can absolutely, if you want to, you could take a brush and you could paint little circles in. And what's neat is that you can do your circles all different sizes. So if you're choosing to paint them in and do your own, then it's nice because you can make your bubbles all different sizes. Or you could stamp them. So because this is open right here, I can take this marker, and don't worry, this marker is dried out. He doesn't really work anymore, so we're using him for painting now. But you'll get your paint around the edge, and you can take this, and if you hold it straight up and down, you can print your bubbles, and it makes a little bit more of a circle than trying to paint it. Some of the younger artists might not be able to draw a perfect circle, which is very normal because perfect circles are really hard. You don't have to do this step if you don't want to. I think it helps the picture to look a little bit more interesting, and I'm just doing it in the background. I'm not going to do it on top of my mermaid. I do like adding some larger bubbles too, so I'm going to do some stamped and some I'm going to paint in on my own. You're more than welcome to find something to trace too and to draw these in again with pencil first. You're more than welcome to not do this all in one sitting. If you want to make sure that you have a painting you can do for a couple days, then you can absolutely work on it at different times. I'm going to add something into my bubble that's called a highlight. This is kind of the area that in cartoons your bubble has like a lighter area to it. So I'm adding this little highlight in. Helps to make it look like it has an area that's really bright, like it would in real life. And something that I saw with some different pictures that I thought was really cute was adding a kind of shine or a glisten to your bubble. So you could do something on a few bubbles where you add kind of a few light lines sticking off of it, and it makes it look like the bubble is kind of reflecting the sun, and it's like a little bit brighter. So it's kind of like a little X shape on top of your bubble, and it just makes it look like it's shiny. And you don't have to do that at all. You can if you want to. I'm gonna try and help out this little bubble. He's I made a mistake on him whenever I was stamping, but that's okay. He still looks like a bubble. And if you want to, you could even do something where you take your paintbrush and you flip it over and you put it in the white. And you can even add some little polka dots around your background to make it look like little tiny bubbles that maybe haven't even been formed yet, if you want to. And this is really great if you're doing something that's a little perfect circle, like for eyes or something that you need really nice dots to. And you can pay attention because different paintbrushes have different sizes of handles. So some of these dots are really small, but if I use a different paintbrush that's maybe wider in the background, it might be a little bit bigger, and I could get some different variety of polka dots too, which is neat. The very last thing that I have for you to be able to do with your project is to use this glittery paint. This is a really, really neat paint that is actually kind of see-through. So you can put this on top of any color. It's kind of white looking, but it dries clear. So what you need to do is you need to be absolutely sure that your entire mermaid is dry, because these different areas right here, I can tell that the black is still wet. And what will happen is if I'm painting over this and I touch that black, it's gonna smear and it's gonna kind of ruin my picture. Instead of making this next part look awesome, it would kind of leave black streaky lines through it. So this might be something that you wanna come back and do the next day after you let your picture really dry. I can tell that this area is dry enough that I can at least show you in the video what this might look like. So this is a glitter paint, and it's nice because it's just a little bit of glitter. So what'll happen is anywhere that you want to put this, you can paint this on and it will dry clear, but what it will leave are these really cool little glittery pieces that help to make it look like your picture is kind of sparkly, but in a really good way. Like your mermaid's going to look like it has a glistening to it, like the mermaid tail has a really cool shine to it. And it's just something a little bit different than if we were just leaving it flat. And you could take this and you could feel free to put it like inside your bubbles. If you want your bubbles to look glistening, you could put it, you know, inside of your scales to make your scales look shiny. And this is even something that if it's left over, you could totally use it in other areas of your art projects too if you want to. But it's just a really neat, like something different to kind of add in so it makes your project look like even more special. You already painted it by yourself, which is special enough and amazing for all different family members. But this is just something that's like kind of extra cool to be able to add in. That's like, whoa, and it's sparkly too, which is super neat. I would love to get a chance to see your picture whenever you're done with it and see how you decided to go about making your piece of art today. So when you're all finished with your piece, please make sure that you share it and post it on social media. Make sure you tag us at Curio Cool so that we can see it. And we'd love to be able to check out how you made your piece and how yours looks different than ours, because after all, you're the artist and this piece is all about you and how you choose to make it today. Thanks for following along. We can't wait to see your finished piece whenever it's all done.